Hello, you're watching Middle East Matters on France 24. In the programme this week, how do you protect and preserve a culture as it comes under systemic attack, even genocide? A UN commission, Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have separately all concluded that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Tens of thousands of Palestinians have been killed, and the cultural life of the enclave is profoundly threatened too, with the destruction of historic buildings and writers, poets and academics among that huge death toll. Coming up, I'll talk to the bookseller Mahmoud Mouna about how to resist and even create during such challenging times. But first, we'll take you to Gaza itself and a story of hope. A library rebuilt and opened for the first time since the war began.
Palestinians in Gaza are turning the page after years of death and displacement. The first library to open since the war began is led by young people in the Ramal neighborhood of Gaza City, made up of around 6,000 books, painstakingly rescued from the rubble. The Phoenix Library is a quiet act of resilience.
It's the culmination of a long journey to save books in Gaza. This book was the very first to be recovered from one of Gaza's libraries. We pulled the books from the rubble. Many of them were in poor condition. Then we sorted and cleaned them.
Housing a diverse collection of works and a children's section, the library offers a brief escape in wartime. These Palestinians see it as their duty to restore, however modestly, what they've lost.
This library is incredibly important to us, even more so after everything we've been through. It allows us to find books again. I lost my library at home. I didn't take a single book with me, as I never imagined I wouldn't be able to return.
Education has resumed in fragments in Gaza, but schools, libraries and other places of learning are still largely in ruins, destroyed by Israeli bombs and bulldozers. As of March 2026, UNESCO had verified damage to 164 sites since October 7, 2023, including historical or religious buildings and archaeological sites. Historians at Paris's Sorbonne University have created an interactive map of the destroyed heritage.
What we observe, looking at all the data we have, is that the whole of Gaza is being subjected to systematic destruction. We're hoping, trying, by documenting this heritage as thoroughly as we can, to show that no, it will not be okay to act like there was nothing there before and treat it as an empty space in which to build whatever one wants.
The Israeli army has justified the destruction by claiming that the heritage sites targeted by its strikes harboured Hamas cells or infrastructure.
Well, let's go on the programme then from Gaza to Jerusalem and speak to Mahmoud Mouna. He's a writer and he's the manager of the Educational Bookshop, which is one of the best-known literary spaces in Palestinian Jerusalem. Mahmoud, thank you for speaking to us today here on France 24.
Thanks for having me, Nadia.
Look, before we talk about what's happening today, I'd like to zoom out a little bit because there are people out there who are, dismissive of the Palestinian cause, who will say, look, Palestinians are just Arabs, they're no different from Jordanians or Syrians or Lebanese. So help us, first of all, define our terms. What is Palestinian culture in your view, and what makes it different from its neighbours?
Thanks, Nadia. Yeah, we're living in the times of multi-identities, so surely we can allow the Palestinians also to have a multi-layered identity. Surely the Palestinians are unapologetically part of the Palestinian or the wider Arab identity, part of the Middle Eastern Levant identity as well. Now, hundreds of years ago, the Palestinians, particularly in this part of the world, started to have a distinct identity. Socially, culturally, politically, and so on and so forth. And by the end of the Ottoman empires, that identity started to shape up a little bit more clearly, politically and culturally as well. And today we can start to speak about quite a unique cuisine, quite unique music, unique dialect within Arabic, and quite distinct social norms, traditions, and so on and so forth that we call the Palestinians. Yes, of course, it's part and parcel of a wider Middle Eastern or Arab identity, but it's quite unique also to the Palestinians as well. And with that comes a lot of culture and a lot of art music, as I said, and all kind of the elements in which we celebrate culture identity these days as well. I don't think there's any contradictions in saying the Palestinian identity is part of the Arab identity, but I think there's a lot of risk of dehumanizing by ignoring or dismissing the Palestinian identity as a unique identity as itself in some ways.
Yeah, and look, as we saw in our report, that Palestinian sense of itself, its culture, its heritage, has come profoundly under attack in Gaza. Look, what about where you are in Jerusalem, in the occupied West Bank? Give us a sense then of the challenges Palestinians there are facing.
Well, unfortunately, the colonizers usually, and colonization denies people the right to be people and the whole notion of peoplehood, but also deny them the right, the agency to tell their own stories and to be storytellers about their own history and about their own self. And that's true in Gaza, and we see it in kind of bold letters in Gaza, but it's true also in the West Bank. It's true also in Jerusalem. We see a constant attack on cultural institutions, particularly those that celebrate Palestinian identity. And we see that in theater, we see that in music, we see that in books, we see that in museums, of course, and we also see that extended in some ways to education, to attack on schools, attack on curriculums, attack on universities as well. And it's really a sad reality as well. But in some ways, celebrating Palestinian culture identity becomes a means to reaffirm, if you like, or to highlight the peoplehood, the Palestinians' unification, if you like, as a nation, as a people who also, like the rest of the world, deserve their place on the world map and deserve to be seen as human beings.
We're having quite an academic conversation, but actually, look, for you personally, Mahmoud, this isn't academic, is it? Because last year, you and your nephew, Ahmed, you were both arrested by the Israeli army. Your bookshop was raided. You were accused of inciting public disorder through the books that you're selling. It's worth emphasizing these included children's books, a guide to going climbing in the Palestinian territories. So this was a year and a bit ago, Mahmoud, and I just wonder what it is when we're talking about sort of cultural spaces coming under attack, freedom of expression coming under attack. What is it about that period that really stays with you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking to you today from the same bookstore that was raided 1 year and few months ago now. And look, what we do is what any other good bookstore around the world does. It's bring a variety of books that is supposed to intrigue people, books that are supposed to attract people to read them, to open their pages and so on. And the local Israeli police have thought that these books can be inciting for violence. That was the actual accusations. And we had to go to court. I was arrested over 2 nights. And during my custody, there was an attempt to criminalize the Bookselling Act and to criminalize the bookstores, essentially. And we had to go to the higher court, basically, to clear ourselves off and to actually get an order in the end that bookselling is not a crime. And actually, books are protected under certain parentheses, if you like, of freedom of expression, and that we are still allowed to celebrate books, to celebrate literature, even if that literature is edgy. And I'm saying this wholeheartedly, even if the literature or fiction or nonfiction or some sort of studies, even if those books are edgy, if you like, even if they are critical, they are certainly critical of a lot of Israeli practices in the occupied territories. A lot of them is actually written by Jewish authors themselves or by Israeli authors as well, a lot by Palestinians as well. Even if books are edgy, but that's what books are supposed to be. Books are supposed to be books that actually take us into maybe a different viewpoints and get us to think differently. And God forbid books start to be forbidden and started to be banned. That would be a very, very dark stage of history. Unfortunately, we start to see that happening in Jerusalem under Israeli control here in East Jerusalem. It's a policy of shrinking space for art and culture. And it's not just a bookstore. The theater was attacked recently, music school, multidisciplinary culture center, films are being banned. You just showed the Palestine 1936 movie that was banned actually from being screened here in Jerusalem. Under the current right-wing Israeli government, we certainly are seeing elements of increased crackdown, if you like, or increased shrinking space, essentially, on art and culture.
So just to clarify then, in your view, is this crackdown on freedom of speech, on Palestinian culture, has it got significantly worse since October 7th?
Certainly. I would say in this part of the world, East Jerusalem, under de facto Israeli control, for the last 20 years, we have been seeing the writing on the wall, if you like. Things are getting worse. But since the last 2 years, things have gotten significantly worse. And the police is more emboldened, if you like. There's a kind of an acceptance, a kind of an umbrella in which the police and the authorities are operating with much more free hand, particularly in places that should be protected, as I said earlier, something, like a bookstore or a theater or a school or university or things like this. That's a very, very alarming signal. And it shows a change in Israel as a state and Israel as an institution, as if the tolerance for alternative ideas or contradicting views is shrinking. And the state seems to be not interested in that diversity of voices. And that's very alarming, as I said.
How do you resist that as a writer yourself? Is it through writing? Is it through holding events? How do you try to push back?
Well, writers do what they do best. They write. We constantly are reminded of the power of our profession, the power of words. If it is literature, if it is music, it's the power of music. If it is theater, it's the power of the stage. We have to continue to do what we do to resist this criminalization act or this act of intimidation, essentially, and to continue to defend our space, if you like, our space in the intellectual sense, but our spaces, the physical spaces, keeping bookstores open, keeping theaters performing, keeping music being loud, and to continue to do what you do. And that's how we face and how we confront, if you like, this form of oppression. I wouldn't want to do anything else. I'm a writer. I believe in the power of literature, and that will be my tools to do that. And it's getting harder. As I said, space is shrinking more and more. We'll see what's going to happen in internal Israeli changes in the coming years and the coming months, and the elections coming up, of course. But we should not really start to question the importance of our work and the legitimacy of our actions.
And just a final question for you then, given the context that you've spelled out there, Palestinian culture under this kind of profound institutional systemic attack. From your own space, in your own bookshop, why do you think it's so important that we still have bookshops and we still have Palestinians creating art and writing books?
Look, you don't want to live in any place without art and culture, but certainly in place of hardship and occupation and conflict, art and culture is a place where it keeps people's sanity. Particularly as booksellers, I think booksellers are public health actors. We are kind of like doctors. We can feel, if you like, at early stage what kind of illness is spreading in there in our society, and the next day on our tables, in our displays, you find books that provide some sort of curement for these diseases. And I really like to see ourselves as public health actors, that we don't shove medicines down people's throat, but we present ideas in which we tackle these diseases in the society. That's our role as booksellers. It's a global action, if you like. We don't treat one person at a time like doctors. We cure society, if you like. And you don't want to live in a city that doesn't have a good bookstore. You don't want to really live in a society where those people who are providing answers, avenues, spaces for conversations and discussion and art disappearing. And in that sense, I really take my job very, very seriously. And bookstores has historically been important for enlightening and tackling issues of racism and issues of dominations and so on. And I hope bookstores will continue to do that, and I live by that tradition.
All right. Well, we will leave our viewers with that beautiful message. Thank you so much, Mahmoud, talking to us there from the Educational Bookshop in Jerusalem. And that's been Middle East Matters. Thank you so much for watching here on Around the World.